Okay, hello and welcome to Law and Politics' second program of the 2020-2021 academic year. For those of you just now becoming acquainted with our program, welcome. My name is Maysa Nichter and I'm the director of the Law and Politics Initiative here at UCSD. And our mission is to inspire, educate, and support undergraduates, as well as recent alum who wish to pursue a legal-related field, whether that be law, policy, or government work. Today, our discussion is titled, What I Wish I Knew Before Attending Law School. And to help us with this lively and hopefully helpful discussion are three accomplished attorney panelists who not too long ago went through this exact experience you're thinking about embarking upon yourself. So I'm going to ask our panelists to just briefly introduce themselves, perhaps a little bit about yourself, whether that be your law school background or your professional experience. And let's begin with, in alphabetical order, Miss Anita Bamshed.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anita. I graduated from UCSD in 2012 with a degree in economics. I then went on to UC Davis School of Law, and I graduated from there in 2016. Since then, I've spent the majority of my time in practice at a law firm called Bowman & Brook in San Jose, where I represented major automotive manufacturers in product liability litigation. In July of 2020, I transitioned into a contract role. So now I support the legal departments of companies needing support on a contract basis. I'm really happy to be with you all today. It's exciting to see some of your faces. I look forward to answering some of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Next, we have Mr. Elliot Seals.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm also excited, and this is interesting. This is my first Zoom with so many people on the screen, so I'm used to like 5 people on the camera, not this many. But I'm curious how it is for everyone in school right now. So a little bit about me. I went to UCSD and graduated in 2006. I did a double major in international studies and economics. And sort of as I was approaching graduation, had no idea what I was going to do. I studied abroad my last summer at Cambridge in sort of a politics and economics study abroad program. And a lot of people were thinking about law school. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe that'll be a good idea. So got serious about studying for the bar and then ended up at Columbia Law School. Graduated from there in 2011. I studied abroad while I was there also, so I enjoyed traveling. I studied abroad in Germany for my last year of law school and did a dual degree program where I got a JD on LLM. And then came back 2011. It was a little, my years were a little bit off because I actually graduated 2010, but didn't get to take the bar until 2011 because of the study abroad program. But that was kind of I guess the middle of the financial crisis. Feels like the job market is just always bad now for forever maybe, but I think when I graduated from law school, it was kind of the time when it was like, oh, what's going on? You know, so I had summered at a law firm my first summer, came back to the same law firm my second summer, and then they only made offers to half of the people who worked there, and I didn't get an offer. So that was disappointing, but in some ways good, because I think I actually prefer not being at a law firm. So then after law school, I ended up working for the Attorney General's office in California. That was when Kamala Harris was Attorney General. So that's kind of cool that now I can say I worked for her, although I probably met her once. I was very much down the rungs of importance there. But it was a really cool experience to work there. I got to do some trials. I worked in the correctional law section, which is defending the prison system in California. Not necessarily my political viewpoint, but a very interesting place to start my career and learn a lot and get some real hands-on experience as an attorney. And then about 2.5 years ago, I came and joined PG&E, which is the electric company up in Northern California. If you've never been up to Northern California or lived here, maybe you don't know about us, but you probably do because we're in the news a lot. And so I joined in mid-2018 before the big campfire up in Paradise, but after the wine country fires that happened in 2017. So we were already in the news, but we became more in the news after that. And then we had our bankruptcy last year. And it's been an interesting ride. So I've got a lot of sort of varied experience since I've been there. And I'll stop there and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Elliot. And it's so good to see you, Harjit. Next, we have Miss Harjit Garewal, or Sull-Garewal.
Well, first of all, Maysa, thank you for inviting me. I look forward to this panel. I'm very excited. Just by way of background, so I'm currently located in Philly, in Pennsylvania, relocating from San Diego in 2016. I'm born and bred California girl up in Northern California. I went to undergrad at UC Riverside, so not UC San Diego, but not far away. Spent a lot of time with friends at UC San Diego during my college days. A dual degree in business administration and sociology. From there, I went straight into law school. I went to University of San Francisco up in San Francisco, graduated in 2005. While I was in law school, I was working for a law firm. Actually, I had zero law experience when I went into law school, not knowing really what I got myself into. But while I was in law school, I got myself an internship and I worked the second year and third year while I went to school. When I graduated, I was offered a position there, and then I slowly worked my way up. In the law firm, we represented small to middle-sized businesses, everything from construction, litigation, real estate matters, really across the board, whatever our small businesses needed. Eventually, I became partner there. I was, I felt like I was reaching a glass ceiling and I wanted to grow more. And so I said, I want to be partner. And we set out a track for me to do so. And then in 2012, I ended up leaving because my husband wanted to move to San Diego for work. So I followed him. And at that time, really, it gave me an opportunity to decide what I really wanted to do. Although I loved litigation, it was really tough on our family. And we wanted to start a family. And I'll tell you, litigation takes a lot of time, and you've got to consider what you want your quality of life to be. So at that point, I worked at Thomas Jefferson School of Law in San Diego. That's actually where I met Maysa many moons ago. And I worked as the Associate Director of Academic Success in the Writing Department. And then from there, I realized I like to be in law or just in school, but I'd rather be in administration. So then I jumped to another organization serving as in-house counsel for an educational institution. And then again, my husband wanted us to move, so that's how we're in Philadelphia. He's pursuing a PhD. And now I work for a tech company here. We're a Fortune 500 company. We're a department of 160 people in the legal department. I'm responsible for all global software technology transactions. So it's a very big title, and I feel like a very big girl, and I feel sometimes like I'm an imposter. I don't know how I got this position, but I'm so pleased to be here, and I'm excited to share my road and my journey with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harjit. And next we have Christina Tapia. Ms. Christina Tapia.
Okay, I'm gonna try to remember everything I've done. I feel like it's been a while, but I went to UCSD in 1998 to 2002, graduated and went straight to law school, University of Southern California, and I've been an attorney since 2015. So it's, no, sorry, 2005. Gosh, see, it's been so long, I can't remember. And I think Elliot and I must have been coworkers for a short amount of time, because I was also at the Attorney General's office in the midpoint of my career, but I did not stay very long. I've been working mostly in employment law for most of my career, which is actually an area I really love. I do defense work, which a lot of people get surprised at first when they hear, but the wonderful thing about the work I do is a lot of attorneys who are employment law attorneys don't just help their clients with lawsuits. We also counsel our clients, because if you don't know, California laws are they're very pro-employee, which is good. And it's a good way to try to help other people do the right thing, because your clients don't want to spend a lot of money defending lawsuits. So it's actually a fun aspect of my job that although I'm on the defense side, I litigate, I do have trials. A big portion of my job is just counseling my clients to make sure that they are following the law, which is actually my favorite part of the job. And well, I've been an attorney, and I've been mostly practicing law firms. In fact, the law firm I am in right now was my very first law firm when I had just passed the bar, and I left them for a short time, and I recently returned to them last year. So one thing to know is don't burn your bridges, as you never know where you might end up later. I'm loving being back at the firm now. It's a mid-sized firm, and I tried out different places, large firms and public service and different things. And it was the better fit to come back here. And I also, for a small amount of time, about 5 years ago, I taught at USD in a paralegal program, which was great, but it's kind of hard to be a lawyer and a teacher at the same time. But I'm excited to hear everybody's questions. I'm not sure how many people are interested in public service or law school. When I was at UCSD, I participated in the UCDC program and interned for a congressman back in the day. So yeah, if you have questions about that program too, at least I can give you some insight from what I remember back then. But it's great to meet you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christina. And I hope our students see right away how many doors open up for you with a law degree. You know, certainly in some cases, our attorneys will graduate and work at the same organization or firm the entirety of their career. But more often than not, the law degree and the experience that you gather with each opportunity opens up more and more doors for you. And there certainly are shifts in your career. Certainly some individuals will take a break for a number of years and go back. So it's just such a diverse opportunity to pursue a degree in law. So I hope that this is just listening to the biographies of our panelists, how diverse and how many doors do open up for you with a law degree. So I hope that in itself is inspirational. So panelists, from the questions we received, as well as my own interpretation of this question, what I wish I knew before attending law school, we should focus on a number of things. One, some students may be here to see if law school is in fact something that they want to pursue after hearing about your experience, as well as your career trajectory. At the same time, we have students who are committed to law school or have already applied, been accepted to law school, and are here today to hear more about the actual experience of law school and perhaps gather some wisdom on how to succeed in the program. So we will be covering both in our hour together. I will say that we've also received a number of questions focusing more on how to apply to law school and the application process. And I may bring those questions in here and there, but that will not be the focus of this panel. For those of you interested in that topic, first be sure to view the recording of our first presentation from earlier this year, located on the Law and Politics website, entitled How to Build Your Strongest Law School Application. There, the initiative invited admissions experts from law schools, including UCLA, USC, UC Berkeley. And if after listening to that presentation, you continue to have any questions about the application process, do not hesitate to contact me directly. My email is, it stands for Maysa Nichter, so M as in Maysa, Nichter @ucsd.edu. So go ahead and ask away any questions that you have after listening to that presentation. So let's get started. And panelists, this is very informal, warm discussion, so feel free to jump in at any point that you'd like to contribute to this discussion. So the first question that I have focusing on, is law school right for me? I might like to ask the panelists, what was the deciding factor that compels you to attend law school? When or how did you know that you wanted to go to law school and or become an attorney?
Well, I'm happy to take that first one, Maysa.
Thank you.
That I had some grandiose story to be like, oh, I had this one moment in time and I knew that this was what my future was going to be. And I will say, I think it was just one of those things that I instilled in myself and just had heard time and time again. Education is get you where you want to go in life, right? And it was instilled upon me. I'm a first generation college graduate, first generation, to have a terminal degree such as a JD. And so my parents worked hard, didn't have much of an education, and I knew that I needed to take that opportunity and make better of myself. And so as a result, I said, well, I have to be a professional. And in my culture, or just generally my knowledge was, you either become a doctor, you become a lawyer, or you become an accountant. Those are sort of the main acceptable professions. And I said, well, medicine, probably not for me. Accounting, I like numbers, that's cool, but I think I'm far better at advocating. I have a very deep feeling of what's just, what's fair, and I just found myself being compelled towards the law. And I will say that when I applied to law school, I had never stepped inside of a law firm, inside of a classroom. I didn't even, not a classroom, a courtroom. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I was one of those people like, if this is the path I'm going to choose, I'm going to finish it out no matter what. And so that's how I got to be in law school. And I'm glad that I did.
Yes, and I can contribute to that as well. My experience is similar to Harjit's, but also with office hours that I'm holding now for my class and office hours in the past with other students, it is not necessary to have this epiphany moment where you've always wanted to be a lawyer or even be purpose-driven towards a specific cause. Many students go into law school because of the work they love to read and write, and they're trying to find a suitable profession for themselves. That does not mean at all that you will not have an incredibly flourishing career. There are many colleagues I know who went to school for the same reason, and now they're, at the top of their firm or at the top of their corporation. So that's one thing. And the other thing, Harjit's experience of going to law school on that first day, not really having any significant legal experience or ever stepping into the courtroom, that is fine. That is also a very common experience. A lot of our students stress about getting that legal internship and getting that experience. And I do think it's valuable because it does give you a better sense of what you'll be doing as a lawyer, but please don't feel any less of an applicant if you haven't taken your time to do that or that opportunity hasn't presented itself for you. You can still prepare a very strong law school application and get into a very strong, decent school without that experience and do very well in law school and have a great career. So I think those are great points to hit upon. Thank you, Harjit. Any other panelists want to contribute to that, or should we move on to the next question?
I'll just add, I was very similar, that I had never really thought about law school until close to the end of undergraduate when trying to figure out what to do. I think I was an econ major and was thinking about, maybe I'll be an investment banker, who knows what. And I think I realized, oh, it's really hard to get a job at a big bank right out of college. Maybe I should go and do an MBA or a JD or something. And so I was really studying for the LSAT and sort of told myself, if I can get this score, then I'll apply to law school. If not, then who knows what I'll do. And then I kind of got exactly the score right on the border where I thought, okay, I'll go. And it was fun. It was interesting to be there with people who, my best friend there was somebody who watched Law and Order probably every day of his life and did every mock trial and moot court since high school, I think. And, it was very different. There's some advantages to knowing that you want to be a lawyer and what you want to be when you first get there, but there certainly doesn't hurt to go there with an open mind and just think, people say a JD opens a lot of doors and I'll figure it out later. And I think it does. I think you're very flexible after you graduate from law school.
Yes, yes. And again, I will say it again, it is no predictor of how well you will succeed in law school or in your career, whether or not you've had this innate passion to be a lawyer. It's great if you do, but if you don't, and you're just trying to figure out what it is that I want to do with my life, and you're someone who loves the analytical process and the research behind it, and just being tenacious, it could be a very great career for you, or even an education that will open lots of doors for you for decades. What kind of experience can students gain before committing to law school to know that it's right for me? And I think this goes kind of along the lines of, if someone is interested in pursuing legal internships, what are some opportunities now that you sit as a lawyer or as an employer? What are some opportunities that you think would be valuable for law students to gain before they go into law school to know that it is something for them?
Well, I'll go ahead and speak on this one. For me, I think that even if you can't get yourself an internship, merely just reaching out to an attorney, maybe somebody in your network or somebody from your church, somebody from your community, and try to ask them why they did what they did, ask them out for a cup of coffee. Same thing with law students. If there's somebody in your friend circle or somebody who knows somebody, just try to understand and gauge from them what their experience is like. Because obviously it'd be great if you got a chance to work in a law firm or an internship or something of that nature, but it's not available to everybody. But I think at the very minimum, what you can do is just try to reach out. You know what, I'll tell you, when I was in law school, LinkedIn was just coming out and I was cold emailing people a lot. And I'll tell you, the job that I got right now, and I've been here a year and a half, I similarly was cold emailing. So even 14 years into my practice, there is something valuable for the person receiving the email to say, somebody's out there really trying to get my attention and I appreciate the initiative. And so they're probably open to talking to you, meeting with you. So just because you don't know somebody in your circle doesn't mean you can't find somebody.
I think that is such great advice. And some of us do come from backgrounds where we're connected to attorneys, we come from a family of attorneys, and many of us aren't. And again, more and more often than not, students don't feel like they have that personal connection to an attorney. So I think that's great advice to contact, especially now in this era of Zoom and virtual meetings. You know, it's low opportunity cost for attorneys to just sit with you and talk to you about what they do day to day. I think that in itself is very valuable. And I know that in law school, Harjit and I have both taught the concept of be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so this is something that you can start now. I know it is uncomfortable to just call someone that you don't know or email someone that you don't know, but that is part of the legal practice, to kind of put yourself out there and push and challenge yourself to have conversations, difficult conversations. It's surprising how welcoming the legal community can be to students and individuals who are thinking about going to law school. I think our heart goes out to the next generation of attorneys. So go ahead and push yourself to make contact with attorneys. And if you just can't do it, if you're just struggling with it, again, please contact me directly. I'm happy to help kind of navigate that conversation for you. But I think just speaking with lawyers and getting a better sense of what they do is so valuable. Yes. So
yeah, and if you guys are really going to try to, there's actually a San Diego Bar event that's coming up on the 27th of this month. I know that it's technically aimed for law students, but I've been to events where college students go. And, in fact, I was just pulling up right now while we were talking, and I do see there's an option for community registers. So it's a Zoom way that you can meet people, and it'll be attorneys that are already open to talking to law students. And I've gone to these events before, and I've seen college students come, and I've not once seen an attorney turn away a discussion from a law student who's also interested in law school. So keep in mind that there's local associations. I'm a member of the La Raza Association, but there's various associations. If you even just search San Diego Bar Associations and look it up, they'll have events. And right now with the Zoom aspect, go log in, talk to people, see what people are saying, because it is actually very valuable to talk to people. And if there's certain areas you're interested in, you can start talking to them now. Just talk to them now. Don't ask for a job first. Just talk to them now, make your contacts. And then once you have the contact, follow up, they become someone you know. And then who knows, down the line, they might have be aware of a job that might help out, or if anything, just give you advice on areas you're interested in. So that would be a thought I have.
That is great advice, to contact local organizations such as the San Diego Bar Association. There's a Women Law Association. There's also different sorts of associations, local. And now again, in the era of Zoom, it's low opportunity cost to log into these meetings and just kind of be part of the conversation. And even if it's just listening in, seeing if it's something that you're interested in. So that's great advice. For many students,
I'm just going to add something.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Sorry, Maysa. Just on LinkedIn, that it really is surprising how many people will respond, even if you have absolutely no connection to them. Reach out, connect, make up some reason you're interested in connecting with them, find something common. I mean, an easy way is just search for attorneys who went to UCSD and then say, hey, I saw that you went to UCSD. Would you be open to a 20-minute call with me? Or maybe 20 minutes might be a lot, but I'm thinking about applying to law school. See, you're working in this area and curious to learn more. And it's amazing how many people will respond.
Fantastic. And, for these attorneys,
I've responded to every single one. I just wanted to chime in. Yeah, every single student that's ever reached out to me on LinkedIn, I've always responded. I think a lot of attorneys get really, really excited when they get reached out by students, because they want to share their experience, because a lot of them, like me, they wished they had that type of information before they started the whole process. So I think a lot of attorneys are extra excited to hear from students. So don't hesitate. But if you happen not to get a response, don't get discouraged. When I was in law school, I kind of blanket reached out to a ton of people. I would say maybe half of them didn't respond. But I did set up a lot of informational interviews to try to understand what type of practice was right for me. So I would just say, don't hesitate and don't get discouraged if you don't get a response. Just be really, really, really assertive about it.
Thank you so much, Anita. And this has come up even in my office hours, and it's only been a few weeks. The financial aspect is what's holding or causing some students hesitation from attending law school. And it's, for many of us, we graduated, you know, in the 2006, 2010 era, and it's become significantly more expensive now. And I'd love to hear your opinion now that you've been practicing for a number of years. Does it pay off to attend? And what are your thoughts on that? Because I know it's not uncommon for law students to graduate with, you know, $250,000 of debt.
Well, I'm going to be honest and say you should not go to law school if you're going to take $250,000 of debt. I think that's just, it's a big risk unless you have, you know, some money in your background that can help you. It's a big risk to take on a lot of money for debt. If you're able to, so I had friends who were deciding between schools, and maybe they went to a different school because they were able to get a larger scholarship, or maybe they waited a couple of years to see if it was really a decision for them. And, you know, maybe I shouldn't say that. If you want to take on a lot of debt, go for it. But just keep in mind that that is money you're going to owe. And as of right now, that's one of the few debts you cannot get out of later in life. I think there's lots you can get rid of in bankruptcy, but right now it's not one of them. So I will say that in the years that I've gone to lots of events and I've talked to students, sometimes they go and they don't really take that as seriously as they should, the amount of money that it costs. And in fact, I went to school with people who didn't take it very seriously. And what was the saying we said? They lived like a lawyer when they were a law student. So they had to live like a law student when they were a lawyer. And they probably would have had a lot less debt if they were a little smarter about it. You don't have to take out the max loans. I didn't work my first year, but I worked the other 2 years. I worked the summer. I did the best I could to budget. I didn't assume I was going to have the biggest firm job when I left. You might, but you can't make that assumption. So if it's something you're really interested in, you're willing to take on the risk of debt, go for it. But just be smart about it and look at your options. If you can get a scholarship, if you can do a job that helps to defer the payments, it can vary. I didn't incur $250,000 of debt. And the only people I knew who had a lot of debt were ones that, like I said, they lived like a lawyer when they were a law student, and now that's probably vice versa. But I just be realistic. We're all adults here. So, you know, really figure out how much you can take on realistically. And I do not regret going to law school. I've been practicing 15 years, almost 16, and I still love my degree, and I'm glad I did it. But I also finished right before the interest rates went crazy. So I have a different viewpoint on the debt issue. And I just know people that graduated after me who some of them were fine and some struggled. So, you know, just be smart about it. You're all adults, you can make good decisions. So I would say don't make the debt the reason you don't go, but don't ignore it before you pursue it.
Yeah, I want to echo that, since I graduated law school relatively recently compared to folks on this panel. One point I wanted to make is that you can always bother the financial aid office. My first year, my second year, my third year of law school, at the beginning of the year, I went back every year and I was like, hey, do you guys have like any more money, like any more scholarships that you can give me? And the first few times the answer is going to be no. And then magically they come up with an extra like 5 or 10,000. I mean, so the persistence will pay off. Always ask and pester your financial aid office. And I do want to echo Christina's point about the debt. I think for me, I think it's worth it. I certainly I don't regret going to law school and taking on debt. But I think it's really, really important to make a really informed decision about it. I think I have a lot of friends that, you know, they graduated law school, they got their first salary, and then they immediately started buying cars, moving into the fanciest apartments, buying all designer stuff, and really just like ignoring the debt that was increasing, because as you know, interest, it grows, it grows, it can grow like a fire. It can get out of control really, really quickly. And so I have, you know, friends that ignored the debt and it continued to grow. And then on the other hand, I have friends that, you know, came out with a good amount of debt. They didn't get the big, you know, law firm job, but they got a modest, a decent salary. And they continued to live like they were students. They didn't move into fancy places. They didn't, buy cars or whatever. And they put out their debt like it was on fire. And so I have friends that paid off all their debt in 3 years at 28 years old in a awesome spot to, start building wealth as an adult. And of course, I mean, that's not to say that everybody can do that. I think, of course, people have different personal obligations and family obligations. Not everybody can throw half their paycheck at their student loan debt repayment. But there are options. And I just don't want to make it seem like you're going to be, ball and chain indebted to this debt, as a matter of course. There are smart ways that you can handle it.
Yeah, thank you, Anita. If I could just close on that, everything that has been said, I love hearing it. I would say that I don't want any of our students to feel like I wanted to go to law school, I wanted to be a lawyer, but I didn't have the money, so I didn't do it. So if it is something that you want to do, if it's a passion and you feel that you could do a good job, I want you to go to law school, and I don't want money to be an option, because I'm someone who had almost $250,000 of debt. I had no money. I didn't come from money. I didn't qualify for the scholarships and whatnot. I think I got some, but not many. And I know many peers at UC Berkeley and even some of the top schools that are very expensive to attend graduate with a lot of debt. However, again, as has been echoed, if you're a good student and you're smart in your decisions while you're in law school, and you make good decisions about where to go after graduation from law school, and you work hard and you live like a student when you graduate, you don't forget who you are and where you came from, and you live modestly and you pay off that debt, it is absolutely possible to pay off your debt. In 5, 10, 15 years, you have 30 years to pay it off. So if you split it up over 30 years, it comes to like, $400 or $500. It's just part of your life. It's almost like a membership that you pay for every month, and you get to do what you love to do. And you feel that you have this great career. So I don't want any of you to sit here being like, I wish I could be a lawyer, but I don't have the money to do it. It is absolutely possible. And, but you have to be smart, and you have to not forget the ultimate goal of, practicing as an attorney and being financially responsible all along the way.
Can I just add one thing to that? So yes. You mentioned a couple things, paying it off 30 years. I'll tell you, I graduated 15 years ago and I'm still paying mine off. But I am like Christina, where it was easy for me to consolidate. I consolidated my loans at 1%. So it was almost like, just go ahead and take 30 years to pay for it. I don't mind. But I want you to keep in mind that as you progress in your career, you will make more income. The idea is that as you are getting older, you have more experience, you're getting the raises, you're jumping to different opportunities, you expect to make increases, so you can throw more money in it. So even if you come out of a job, come out of law school and you're making 70,000, 90,000, 110, whatever it is, that's not going to be what you make all your life. You can work your way up and give more money down the road. So again, I would echo, do not let the money stop you, but be smart about what you choose, how much money you take out. Live like a law student.
Yes, very good.
I thought I saw someone might have a question, like if you can TA at the UC schools. Maybe I've seen that. Oh, I don't know if you can TA at the UC schools, but I did work for one of my professors. Sometimes they hire attorneys to be like a research assistant. I worked for a union, actually the California Teachers Association. I worked for the California Teachers. Well, I was in law school. That was actually a good paying job because it was a union job. But there are jobs that you can get. It can be hard though to find jobs while you're working. I also taught for Kaplan. I taught SAT prep. So there are things you can do. I would say, when I went, the recommendation was not to work your first year. And I'm really glad I didn't, because your first year is very tough. But I worked the summer before, I worked the summer after, and I worked every year after. So I did what I could to earn money while I was there to reduce how much debt I incurred. But yeah, I agree that you shouldn't let the debt be the reason you don't go. Just be smart and don't incur more debt that you need to. That you can live well without living too well and be okay with your debt when you come out.
Yeah, let's be honest. Some of us do go to law school because we want that extravagant life, and that's fine. That is just as much of a reason to go. If that's who you are and what drives you, that's fine. But wait a few years and be financially responsible. As soon as you graduate, don't buy the brand new Audi and the penthouse apartment. settle into the practice and see that that you really like it, and get your finances in order first, and then do something a few years down the line once you actually know it's something that you want to do in the long run.
And one thing real quick,
Yes,
I also took out plenty of debt, and I'm almost out of it very soon, hopefully. But yeah, not quite 250, close. But one thing that made me more comfortable doing it was Columbia had a really good public interest repayment program. And so, after graduation, it was kind of like, okay, I'll go work for the government and Columbia is going to help me pay back. So, but that means you're not going to make as much money. It was kind of a tiered, anything over 50,000 I made, I had to pay a portion to my loans, and after 10 years, it would be paid off. But, if you're comfortable not making hundreds of thousands right out of law school, after 10 years, you'll be out of it. So, consider that when you're looking at schools also. What is your backup plan? If you do incur all this debt and you can't get that big firm job, what are you going to do? I think that's another thing to make yourself more comfortable.
Now getting into a little bit about the law school application process and the choices you made. How did each of the panelists, decide where to go to law school? I imagine the students that will be applying to law school will be strong applicants. They'll have a number of choices about where to attend. How did you decide where to go to law school?
I'll chime in on this one. So I applied to all of the UCs and a few out-of-state schools, but I really wanted to go to a UC. And I had never visited Davis. I didn't know anything about UC Davis. And so I kind of blindly applied. And then in March of that year, I got a call from the dean who said, Anita, you're admitted. We would love for you to visit the school. And Davis at that time was doing a program where they would give you a stipend to come and travel to visit the campus. And I visited the campus and I became obsessed with it immediately. It was so gorgeous. It's filled with trees, and there's an arboretum with a river running through it. It is just like a picturesque place to study law. So the first day I landed there, I was like, this is it. I'm done. My decision was made. So all of that to say is visit the schools. Don't write off any particular school because they weren't top of your list or weren't on your radar. It's got to fit your vibe, and it's got to fit your comfort zone, if you will. Studying law is really, really hard and it's really competitive. But if you can be in a warm and welcoming environment where folks are nice and the professors are really nice, that was another huge thing that Davis had to offer. So all of those things should be really big considerations when you're making your decision.
And I think where you want to work and what you want to do afterwards is important. I thought I wanted to work on Wall Street, so I wanted to go to the East Coast. I wanted to go to New York. I thought, oh, that'll be great. But also knowing yourself, I kind of was comparing NYU and Columbia when I was deciding. And NYU seemed like it would be very busy. And I like, even though I wanted to go to New York, I wanted a little bit of breathing room. So being Upper West Side was a much better fit for me. And I quickly realized that it was too cold there for me to live in New York, so I knew I wanted to come back to California. But, I think you'll notice that in the Bay Area, like there's all kinds of graduates from local law schools that are very, very successful. And it really does make a difference. If you go to UC Hastings, you have just as many opportunities in the Bay Area as if you go to Columbia, I think. So there are sort of local universities, and UC Davis also. I work with some really good attorneys from UC Davis. But the law school can be local because it has a lot to do with your network. And so if you go to a local school where you want to practice, it can make a difference.
That's great. That's great advice.
Yeah, I found that to be true because I went to school at USC, but I practice here, and I know a lot of people who practice in San Diego went to one of the San Diego schools. And I have found that if there's a certain city you're interested in and you go to a school that's reputable in that area, you could be just as successful as if you go to a bigger school. Bigger school might just give you more options nationally because people know it better. But it doesn't mean that that's the only way you could be an attorney. I know a lot of good attorneys that went to Thomas Jefferson, that went to Cal Western. And honestly, if you're going to go to a local school and you want to stay here, then go to those events, even if it's the Zoom event, meet the people, go to the receptions, start meeting people, and you never know, because I'm not practicing in the area where I thought I was going to practice. I thought I was going to be a law professor, and the closest I did was teach paralegal classes mid-career. But I started doing this work, and I really liked it, and because I started meeting people who did this work, and that started in law school. And so, if you are interested in a certain city, do not feel like you have to limit yourself on the type of school. And I would go visit, talk to the people who work there, see if there's alumni from there that they can get you in touch with while you're considering. I think that I wish I would have done that when I was applying, but I know people who did that when they were applying, and it helped them to decide where to go.
Yeah, so I'll also echo similar about location. Based on my LSAT score, I knew I could go to a good school, but it wasn't going to be a top tier school. And I was okay with that. I recognized that I didn't make the 175, 79 LSAT. So it was okay. So I knew that I wanted to be in the Bay Area. I grew up in the area. And to everybody else's point, that when you go to a good regional school, first of all, a lot of the attorneys in that area stay there. So I found a lot of alumni from USF in the area, networked with them. And so I definitely think that geography is a very important choice if you are not going to go to a top law school.
Thank you. That's great. I just want to answer quickly a few questions on chat. One question relates to, is it better to take the California bar exam or go to a law school somewhere else in the country and take that state's bar exam? So I just want to clarify that you can attend any law school in the country and then take any state's bar exam. However, you need to pass the bar exam from the state from which you're going to, from where you're going to practice. So you can attend law school at Columbia, New York, take the California bar exam and practice in California. In order to practice in California, you have to take the California bar exam. So they're two separate steps. So I would choose where to go to law school. And if you have a desire, if you envision yourself 5 years from now, I know I want to live in a certain region. As we've all mentioned, I think it would be beneficial to consider the regional and the top law schools in that area. But if you get into Harvard or Yale or Stanford, but for whatever reason, you want to settle in another state, I would go to those schools. I would go to those top schools and then take the bar exam in whatever region you want to practice in.
If I can chime in on that a little bit too. So I have taken the California bar exam. I actually recently took the Pennsylvania bar exam last year, and I'm also a former California bar grader. So the one thing I want to mention is that if you do go to a California non-ABA law school, some states will not take that education. So you may not be able to take an exam in a different state if you did not go to an ABA law school. So I think it's a caveat that we should be aware of, because California is one of the few states that allows anything other than an ABA. So you can do like a CBA, go to a CBA law school, which is a California barred one. So just to note on that.
Great. Now we're going to move into the actual law school experience. We had some students asking about how to mentally prepare themselves for the rigors of law school, what they can expect during their first semester of law school. So what can they do now as undergrads to mentally prepare for that first year or even the first semester of law school experience? If you can all kind of remember that that experience, that wonderful experience we all had. And the great thing that I can say is nationwide, everyone pretty much has a very similar experience. We all take the same courses. So it's kind of, again, like a club that you're part of, an experience that we've all been through and can well remembered. So our panelists, if you could just chime in, each of you, with just a tip or something that they can do now to prepare themselves mentally for what to expect in law school.
One thing I wish I would have known, when I went, I don't know if they still did this in law schools, but when I went, there was a lot of open note tests for finals, which was a weird thing to me, because I thought, why would you be able to have your notes when you're taking a test? That sounds ridiculous. And I remember my first semester, I did pretty good in undergrad, and I didn't do as good my first semester as I thought I would. And then second semester, I took more classes where there was closed book, or I also got some more information from people who took classes prior, same professors, and they had notes from prior courses. And all of a sudden I started doing better. And so I learned, if you know people who went to the school before you, especially recently, they may have notes for professors. And I found out a lot of people who did well the first semester either had brothers or sisters who went, cousins that went, friends of friends. One thing I wish I would have known is that, people, if they have notes from prior years, they're good to have. If people have had professors before, have a drink with them, have lunch with them, ask them about this professor. If a professor offers alpha hours, take them. If they offer pre-tests that don't count towards your grade, take them. Do whatever you can, because it's such a weird experience. When I went, and it's so long ago, I remember it was mostly a final, sometimes a midterm. So there's so much that rides on one or two tests. It's a lot. It's kind of hard to go from that's when I went to UC. I went to UC system, so it was like the quarter system where everything's so fast and things are coming. I switched to semester system where everything seemed to take forever. But if you can network and find people who went before, talk to them, see if they have notes, see if they have experiences they could share. If a professor offers office hours, take advantage. Do not be shy to ask them you don't know things. do ask them. They will help. They're usually, I started going office hours my second year, and I wish I would have gone first year. Whenever I went, the lines were short. I think people were just nervous to go and talk to their professors. Take advantage of that time and do whatever you can. And don't also think, because I went to undergrad, I got through, I have my bachelor's, I know so much. You're just, it's hard. Law school is different. It's a whole different thing. I don't know how everybody else went through, but I just remember that first semester kicked my butt. So it was good to know I wasn't the only one. And I started learning things that probably held me back that I wish I would have known before. But yeah, just take advantage of what you ever can of other people who went through, especially if they went recently, or the professors that are willing to help before tests. Because it is a completely different thing. 15 years ago, I'm still kind of sweating thinking about it.
And the tests are different. I mean, I think that was really good advice, Christina. And I remember my worst grades were the open book tests, because I thought, I'm a good test taker. Those will be easy. I can find the answer in the book. You can't find the answer in the book. That's not that's not how the law works. So I don't know how to make use of that, but they do have the tests are unique. And I remember the Black Law Student Association put on an event at Columbia when I was there, where they had like a special training to law school tests. I don't remember what it was, but the sort of the fact finding idea of tests and how you're supposed to respond, and just throw whatever you can out there. I don't remember it very well, as you guys can tell, but search out sort of those opportunities to get on advice on how to take tests in law school, because it is a little bit different than undergrad tests.
I think that's great. Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to suggest to do before you go to law school is just get on a schedule. I think undergrad life, like, you can go to sleep late, you can get up late, not a big deal. Law school, you have to be far more regimented. And that was surprising for me, but I wish that I knew it and I was a little bit more adaptable early on. I think that, first semester was difficult for many reasons, but I feel like that's one thing I could have probably done before I went to law school, is like get myself regimented. I'm gonna get up, go to the gym at 6. I'm gonna be in my class by 8. I know that I'm gonna allot a certain amount of time for study. I'm gonna give myself a certain amount of time for break time. So I would say, try to start maneuvering yourself or getting yourself into a schedule before you go to law school. It would be helpful.
Yes, I was going to echo the same thing. Not necessarily that I did this, but if I could go back, this is what I would do. I would remember that law school is a professional school. And so I would start acting like a professional from day one. I would treat it like a professional job. I would wake up in the morning, dress professionally. People will remember you. The legal community is small. So remember how you present yourself, how you speak to each other, make those connections in law school, and really treat it like a full day of work. So even if your reading is done by like noon or 1 p.m., don't stop. There's always more than you can do. Work on your outline, start practicing hypotheticals. As Christina said, the semester is long. And so over the course of the semester, there's a lot of material to cover, and you can't possibly cram it into a week of studying right before finals. It's a skill and a knowledge base that you need to develop over the course of the semester. So take the full day. You don't need to, burn the midnight oil, but take a full day each day and work until, 5 or 6 in the evening and make it a productive day. It's very unlike undergrad, where you can kind of, depending on your major, kind of cruise by and just kind of do your readings and then cram that last week and do quite well. that's not how law school works. You have to prepare for it all semester long, and that takes some adjusting.
Yeah, do not get behind on your reading. Do not get behind on your reading. You
Yes.
cannot catch up. And don't be afraid of study groups. Make friends and start studying groups, because other people can help you learn it together.
And Anita, did you have something?
Yeah, I just had a couple of things. So when I started law school, I kind of made a point of it to sit in the front row of each one of my classes, and you'll get assigned, well, at least Davis was like this. You had assigned seating in each class, and that's determined on the first day of class. So I would always get there like half an hour before the class started. I would sit at the first row closest to the professor. And the reason for that was because you know, folks have a tendency to like do other stuff on their laptops during class. I mean, that's a known fact. And I would get really distracted by that. So I didn't want to see anybody else's screen and just like zero in on the professor. And then the other thing was advice that I got my second year of law school, which I regret that I didn't know sooner, was someone told me to just like, when you are sitting in class, just literally transcribe everything the professor says to the best that you can. Just get into this zone where you're just like typing furiously for that hour and 20 minutes or whatever it is. And then when it comes time to study for the final, I mean, you literally have a transcript of everything that the professor has said, and it makes studying way easier. Your outline is like basically done. You can fill it in with more case information. But once I started doing that, like everything became way easier. So it's hard during the class. It's hard to like jam and like really focus for that, you know, long period of time, but then the reward is huge on the other end. So advice that I wanted to pass along.
Thank you. Thank you, Anita. We have some students also who are trying to figure out, even in the undergrad years, you know, what area of law should they go into? So can we put them a little bit at peace as to knowing before they even go to law school, you know, that this is the area of law, and just a little bit about how law school works. You know, it's unlike, you know, medical school where you do a residency in a very specific area, and that is the area you practice through your career. Can someone just kind of speak to the law school experience and how it really is kind of like a generalist education, and it's as you gain experience, you focus more and more in a specific area of law?
Yeah, I can take that. I mean, I went to law school thinking I was probably going to do transactional law and on Wall Street, not really knowing what that meant, but, you know, quote unquote, be a Wall Street lawyer. And my first summer, I had a summer internship at a law firm in San Francisco, and I was doing transactional work because it was sort of, do you want to do transactional or do you want to do litigation? And I said, I want to do transactional. And then after that summer was the financial crash. And I said, nobody's going to do transactional work anymore. I should probably do litigation next summer. So I was going back to that firm and I said, you know, I'm going to do litigation next summer. And you can just kind of hop around, but still most of my courses were more business finance related, just because that's what I was interested in. And the program I did, so my last year I did an LLM program in international finance in Germany that had absolutely nothing to do with litigation. It was very much commercial transactional stuff. And then I came back and did completely litigation work that had nothing to do with business or finance. So it doesn't matter once you have the degree. I mean, it can help. One thing I'll say is that I had a friend who decided for some reason, he said, I'm going to be an employment lawyer. I think his first year in law school, he just made that choice. And then he stuck with it when he was interviewing, and it made it easier because he had a niche that he was looking for, whereas I was kind of all over the place in my interviews. So there's value, but you're definitely not expected or required to focus anywhere.
Yeah. And again, if you have that certain interest and, you know, I would still encourage you to explore other electives just to see if it's something that you want to do, and definitely go get an internship while you're in law school to see if it's something you want to do. And in some areas there are LLMs or advanced degrees such as taxation. That's if you have an interest in tax law, that's definitely something that you want to get, an LLM in tax. But for the most part, you graduate as a generalist, and then it's your work experience. And you can change that, as we saw through our panelists. You know, it's very common every few years to kind of go and do something different. And so that's, I think, the beauty of law. Again, it does open so many doors and options for you.
Yeah, I would echo that. You really should keep your options open, because you never know what you might want to do. Like I said, I thought I want to be a law professor, and just in case, because I didn't know the difference, but when they're talking about litigation, transactional law. Litigation is, there's lawsuits. You might at some point go to court. Sometimes you don't. And transactional is more like you're doing contract type work. So you sometimes have court work related matters, but the focus is not as much on going to day-to-day court type stuff, discovery type of things. At least that's my general understanding, because I'm a litigator, not a transactional law attorney. And yeah, keep your options open, and do as many clinics as you can, do as many internships as you can. Do not restrict yourself because they're not going to get paid. I did a mix of where I got paid sometimes I got student credit, sometimes I didn't get any credit. And in fact, the one where I didn't get paid at all is the one that made me want to do employment law. I worked for the labor commissioner downtown in LA. I did not get any credit for it. I did it because I had a little interest in employment law, but mostly I was just wanting to help people, and I did that, help people make complaints. And then I started getting more interested in the practice itself. And then I learned that even if you're on defense side, you can do work with clients to help, make sure they don't do the law wrong. And I would have, if I didn't do that clinic, I wouldn't even be in the area I'm in now, which I've done most of my career. So, and also when I interviewed, it was a lot nicer to be able to go to an interview and say all the work that I had done, which I had only done through clinics. I even got to appear in court. I interned for the city of San Diego city attorney's office. I did a couple of cases, couple of trials. They were people who are cited for possession of alcohol, but there was a judge, and I got to do direct examination and do a closing argument. And when I went to my interviews, I got to tell people I have done a trial. And some attorneys will practice for years and not do that. So make sure that you are taking advantage of any internship you can do, any clinic you can do. It will let you see areas you may be interested in. And the worst case is you'll get some experience when you go to your interview. You won't just say, I went to law school, end of question, end of answer. Trust me, it was a lot easier to go to the interview process when I was able to bring up some practical advice and maybe even surprise a couple interviewees that I had gone to trial, which not a lot of law students can say.
Thank you. Quickly, we had one question come in about joint degrees, like joint JD, MPH, JD, MBA, and the question is, will it actually make me marketable for corporate law positions? I can certainly answer that question, but if someone else wants to answer that, I can pass that along. I'll go ahead and answer it. So the first thing I want everyone to note and understand is that when you apply to these joint degree programs, they certainly cannot hurt you. They will help you. They will help you. But you do need to apply to both schools individually. And so you need to be accepted into both programs. So just understand that when you apply to a JD MBA program, the MBA, the business school will decide your application, and the law program will decide the program on their own. So you want to take equal effort in applying to these schools. It is not essential. Plenty of lawyers go into the corporate realm, corporate law, without an MBA. So I just want you to know that it's not something you have to do, but if it's something that you want to do and you're passionate about it, and especially if you're an individual who, doesn't really know if they actually want to be a practicing attorney, but they want to take the legal skills into the business realm, absolutely, I would consider that as well.
And I can say for my law firm, for my current organization, so we have about 80 attorneys, and I will say it's in-house position in a tech company, and very few have dual degrees. So it's not something that is prerequisite. Now for myself, I would like to go back and get my MBA, but I'm glad I didn't do it in law school as a joint, because I think I needed this business experience and know what I wanted to focus on. So when I go back to MBA, whether it's this year or next year, I can focus on like fintech or something like that, that I know that I'm going to be using in my path forward. So simply because you don't do a joint degree now doesn't mean you cannot go back and get a degree later. And I will tell you, a lot of my colleagues that I work with, whether it's a second degree or whether they do certifications later on in their practice, there's always more education to be had. Just because you're done with your law degree doesn't mean that you're not going to continue to learn or try to get additional certs or other.
Great. Okay. We spoke a little bit about the law school debt. What does the average, now we're going into beyond law school after graduation. What is the average law school graduate, when does the average law school graduate pay off their law school debt? And it's my experience that many people do pay it off for many years. But again, certainly you can pay it off in a number of years, just depending on your situation. And some people are strategic about it, just so you know. I know a number of people, including myself, who knew that a big firm experience is not something that I wanted to do in the long run, but it was a very high paying job. And so I strategically went in, worked at a law firm, a top law firm for 5 years, and paid off my debt as fast as possible, knowing that I was not going to last long. I burnt out after a number of years, but I was happy I did it. And so you can be strategic about it as well. And also one thing that I should mention is if you know that you want to go into public service, but you also know that you'll be graduating with a significant amount of debt, as Elliot mentioned, many schools do have loan forgiveness programs where if you commit to 10 years working in public interest, any public interest organization, you can switch every few years if you want to, but if you can show that you worked at a public interest organization for a decade, the remainder of your law school debt is forgiven. So that's something that you may want to think about.
And real quick on that, because I was interested, I was hoping that was how I was going to pay off my loans for a long time. The federal government, I think, also has some loan forgiveness program sort of similar if you work for government, but I've heard that it's very cumbersome to deal with and doesn't always work out the way you expect. And there's also issues with private versus public loans. One of my loans was private, and I realized, oh my God, I would still have $40,000 in debt after 10 years because that one wouldn't be forgiven. So, there's pay attention to the details as much of a pain.
And there is, you're right, there is quite a bit of paperwork to show every few months that you are still working at a public interest organization. And also there was a question here, there's loan forgiveness without, yes, I think that was a statement. Yeah. Yes, you don't have to work for the government, you can work at any nonprofit.
But it depends on the program. I think the loan forgiveness program.
Okay, right. Yes, and your law school, law school's rules. Okay, what areas of law, we're just kind of finishing up with some final kind of thoughts on after law school. What areas of the law do you feel are most marketable right now? Any thoughts just from your practice? What do you see the future, for students who are going to law school in a couple of years, graduating in 3, so 5 years from now, 4 or 5 years ago, what areas of law do you think would be marketable or continue to be in demand?
I think litigation is always, Christina maybe was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, sustained most of my career, employment law seems to be a good area. People usually work or get fired, as my boss, who's like I said, was my boss before, my boss now, always reminds me. And also I worked for a bankruptcy attorney when I was in law school and college. And she would kind of say the same thing to me, is that people are usually in debt or making money and people are trying to collect. So, there's a lot of areas that are marketable, but you want to be in an area you like, because you're going to go crazy if you don't like the area. You really will. I mean, I love employment law, but not everyone likes employment law. Not everyone likes litigation. Some people do not like doing discovery or going to court. So, do look for an area that's marketable, that's smart, but also see if you can get some experience, either talking to people who practice in the area, see if you like it. Because I mean, I have friends that do patent law and that would bore me to death, but they love it and they'll do it forever. And you never know what might interest you. So you are also more marketable if you like what you do and you're good at it. So just keep your eyes open on different practices and don't just choose it based on marketability. It's a factor you should look at, but if it's an area if it interests you, don't exclude it from your choices.
And I think that
I agree. I think it's really
just in what oh, sorry, Elliot, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's really transferable, sort of going from one area to another. And, if you do something that you like and then it turns out, 3 years, there's not much work in that area anymore. I feel like as a lawyer, you can find something else. So I think it's better to go in looking for something you'll enjoy and then adjust later.
I was going to say that just because of where I work and seeing like technology and IP and data privacy, all those areas I only see growing as we continue to evolve in our technology, whether it's Facebook or Amazon or Google or the next thing that we don't even know about yet. I think that there's a lot of great opportunity in tech, and it's not just like intellectual property. There's just so many issues. I know people who work at Uber that are on the policy side, they're attorneys, and then I know some that are working doing patents, and then, you know, what Christina mentioned, and then sometimes there are people that are doing litigation within it. So these big tech companies, I just don't see them going away anytime soon. So I think that having a little bit of knowledge on technology would be good as well.
Yeah, I want to echo that for sure. Data privacy, I think, is huge. That's not going away. To the extent that any classes are offered in law school, take them. I wish that I took them. Like every other job that's posted online is like a privacy role. So that would be my 2 cents.
And one thing you can do, and you don't have to be an attorney, is that you can be CIP certified, that's CIPP. So that's actually something I'm working on right now, because I'm finding that I'm doing a lot more data privacy things, because everything, all the electronics that I'm working with and all the software I work with, somebody's personal data is going through it, whether it's, you know, like Ring and you're seeing who's coming and going from your house, or the Google Alexa, or any of those things. So there are certificates that you can get before you go to law school or while you're in law school. And I would consider those as well. They certainly make you more marketable.
I think that's great advice. And I hope that what you're also seeing here in these stories is that, you know, you have to, I would strongly suggest, if you're going to pursue law, to have a curiosity to learn, because the learning doesn't stop. And the more you learn, the more marketable you become. So it's not a profession where you graduate and you get into a niche and you just stop learning and just start practicing. You always have to be brushing up on your skills. And as society changes and as we get more technology into our practice, you do have to read up on the law and develop skills to continue to be marketable. So I think that's great advice. I'm going to ask one final question to our panelists, and please just be blunt and honest with our students. I think they would really appreciate a response to this question. Is, are you happy with your decision to attend law school? Do you have any regrets about your decision attending law school? And as part of that, also, if you weren't an attorney, what would you be? What would have been your second option that you feel that maybe it's an opportunity that maybe still exists for you? Or what is the other side of it if you had not attended law school?
I can answer this one. So I definitely don't regret going to law school. I'm super happy that I did it. I think that going to law school, passing the bar, practicing as an attorney kind of changes your brain in a good way. It changes the way that you think about things. It changes your analytical skills. It changes the way you communicate. When when a lawyer walks into the room, everybody takes what the lawyer says super seriously. So there's a lot of great things that come with being a lawyer, and I'm really grateful that I have those skills now. I will also say that it's a really, really stressful job. It's hard. I'm not gonna, sugarcoat it. I've been in a few different roles now. And I can only speak to civil litigation. So for example, I've never practiced criminal law, and I've never practiced any type of transactional law. So I'm only speaking to civil litigation. And I'll caution you that if you're the type of person where if somebody yells at you on the phone and that's going to ruin your whole day, then maybe litigation isn't right for you, because the inherent nature of litigation is folks are fighting with each other. And so that's why speaking to attorneys before going to law school, while you're in law school, is so valuable, and asking them the really, really frank questions of, hey, like, what do you like about your job? What do you not like about your job? Like, be honest with me. And attorneys will absolutely be honest with you and tell you those types of things. So I am happy. I feel a sense of satisfaction at the end of the day when I do my job. And I feel like, I make good decisions, and it's been informed by the years of practice that I've accumulated. So I absolutely don't regret it, and I'm happy in my job, but I just want to caution that it is a stressful job and it may not be for everybody necessarily.
Thank you, Anita. Anyone else want to reveal their?
Sure, I'm happy to share. I actually really enjoyed law school. I made a lot of great friends. So first of all, when you come out of law school, you think you're going to know every single piece of law. You don't. You know how to find the law, but you don't know all of the law. You know the basics. I thought I knew exactly how to practice law the day I got out of law school. Also not true. I learned how to practice and be an attorney while working in a law firm. But I do not at all regret going to law school. To echo Anita, it is a really stressful job. I started out in doing civil litigation, and there were times that I slept in my office when we were getting ready for trial. There were times that I missed family vacations. I had to come home from vacation early on because work called. And so people rely on you. You need to understand, in this profession, you are a counselor, and people rely on you, and they do take your word very seriously. You're held in a very high esteem. You do have fiduciary duties to your clients on top of all of that. So, I mean, it's a lot of work. It can be really rewarding, and it's okay to get burnt out, let's say, or change roles, right? I started off in civil litigation, then I went to law school, then I ended up in-house, and I'm really happy where I am now. But it took me a little while to get there. I was happy at the law firm too, but it got tiring after some time. So I think I left after 7 or 8 years when I burned out. And it happens to a lot of attorneys, but that's not to say that there isn't another door that will open. Just having a law degree, you can just become a real estate broker if you wanted to. You could. I work with attorneys in my supply chain. They negotiate contracts. They're not working in the legal department, but so there's other opportunities to use your law degree. So that's that. And then I think you asked, what would I do if I wasn't a lawyer? I would love to work for the points guy. I would just love to travel all the time and work for the points guy and report what's great in the world to visit.
That's awesome. Thank you. We had one question come in that I think we should definitely spend a little bit of time on. How was the law school experience as a woman or a person of color? What were some trials that you faced because of this, and how did you combat it? So I just want to chime in a little bit, and I'd love others to chime in as well. I think as a woman, I can respond to that piece. Law can be stressful, and when people are stressed, they don't always make the best decisions. And by nature, I think some lawyers can be socially awkward. And so what can happen, and it is unfortunately common amongst female lawyers, there is certainly sexual harassment that can happen in the workplace. People are working long hours, all hours. So that's one thing that you should just be aware of, and you should know to seek the resources that you need if and when that happens. Also, as a woman, should you choose to have children, early on in your practice, it's possible to stay in the office 60, 70 hours a week. As Harjit mentioned, sleep in the office because, you have to get up at 6 a.m. for court the next morning and whatnot. But as you, start your family, that can become a challenge. And it's not, unique to women. I think certainly now in our generation, definitely there's a partnership between, the male and the female caregivers, but it can be a challenge to be a mother to young children, as well as to practice law. Personally, I don't think I could do it. I left the practice before I had children and went into teaching, which for me is much less stressful than practice, but that is something that you should think about, and also think about, what sort of mother caregiver you want to be. Absolutely no judgment at all, but I knew plenty of female attorneys who had risen to the top of the firm and are still there, and they're perfectly comfortable with having, nannies or other people other than themselves, tuck their children to bed at night. And if that is who you are, wonderful. But if not, it's something that you may have to do every once in a while. Not all the time, but sometimes there is that sacrifice between family life and being with your children physically being with your children and the practice of law. It may be more flexible now that, with this whole era of Zoom, I think it's going to stay for this idea, this culture of working more from home and being more flexible now that we see that the work can be done at home. But that's certainly something that I just want to let people know about being a caregiver to young children while also practicing in a highly stressful career that does require a lot of physical hours.
Yeah, I just want to chime in real quick. So I've been practicing about 15 years, and I would say it's a lot better now than it was 15 years ago. I had my first trial. I was the second or third attorney, and literally while I was waiting, I had people asking me if I was a paralegal. I think I got that question for a long time. But now that I go to court, I've noticed that men are better at being more respectful. I don't know if it's just the generation. It's like a decade later. Maybe people are just starting to learn. People actually start to learn your BARD number and see that maybe you've been practicing for a while. So they realize maybe you've been around. And I am a mother. I have a 3-year-old. And I have been working 100% from home. I'm in my bedroom right now at my desk in our bedroom. My husband's in the living room and my toddler's in the living room. And I am actually very hopeful because, I mean, maybe it's this pandemic's had so many horrible things, but I feel that it's opened up. I work at a mid-sized law firm, and people, and when I came to the law firm, I actually, because I had known my boss previously, and I told him I would need to work partially from home, and he was fine with that. And luckily, the firm has started setting that up. And once this pandemic hit, every attorney is working from home. All our staff, most of our staff's working at home, except for a skeleton crew. And I've learned from other people in other firms, it's just now that partners are seeing that this can be done and the courts are more open. Every court appearance I do is by phone or by video. Every deposition I do is by, in fact, I had a deposition last week. I did it by video, just like this. It was like Zoom. There were less people, but I questioned the witness with the same background. This is a fake background, so you don't see my room. I'm more encouraged now, being a mother of a young kid, of being able to keep practicing. That I would have been before I had him. I actually left and did a job that was a different, alternative attorney work job where I was working from home because of that reason. And then once he was bigger and I put him in preschool, I came back to the firm. But I mean, I'm working at home 100%, so I get to tuck my kid in at night. Sometimes I do go work and goes to bed. So it is. If you want a complete 9-to-5 job, this might not be it for you, but I do like, though, that if I need to do a couple hours of work, I can just do it real quick, or I can do it on the weekends, But I am hopeful as a woman that it's a little better now. So maybe we'd had something good with the pandemic, opening the firm's eyes to working remotely and having more.
And I will say, it is very dependent on your employer and who your supervisor is. I think as more and more women and mothers rise up and become partners and shareholders in firms and, founders of nonprofit organizations or higher up in government, there will be more of that understanding and empathy of the role of caregivers. So I'm hopeful for that as well. Okay, so I just wanted to close up. If there are any other questions, feel free to email me. I'm happy to meet one-on-one with you all to continue the conversation. If you have questions specifically for panelists, I have their contact information. I will filter those questions. I will gather those questions and send them off to our panelists with the hope that they'll take a few minutes to respond back to us. And I just want to thank everyone for attending, especially our panelists. And again, if you continue to have any questions at all, do not hesitate to contact me directly at mnichter@ucsd.edu. I do want to let you all know, especially as we finish this question, speaking about women in the law, we will have a Women in the Law event during Women's History Month in March. It'll be on March 4th. I will be sending around advertisements for that, and I hope that you can attend. Certainly it's open to men and women, and I think both genders will benefit from hearing about the experience of women in the law. So thank you so much, and especially thank you so much to our panelists. I know your time is so valuable. We honor you and just thank you for your time. Thank you all so much.